Policies are qualitative guidelines that define boundaries of responsibility, and they're guided by the mission statement. They may be internal policies, as company policies, or external, such as legislation or laws that the business follows to achieve its goals. They define boundaries of responsibility within the organization. And we can express policies as sitting on the foundation that we previously established of the environment on top of which sits the vision, core values, mission and purpose statement. Policies sit on top of this, and you'll see as I build up this strategic planning wall, we will have a very stable structure that establishes boundaries of responsibility for goals and objectives, strategies and tactics. So let's learn how we can identify statements of goals. We can choose goals from the potential key performance indicators or critical success factors stated within the strategic plan, as we saw earlier with XYZ's strategic plan. You'll remember these were the critical success factors listed here. And you remember I discussed that these were poorly defined, just as two words or one word, as we see here, subject to each person's individual interpretation. Unless the definition of each of these words are clearly documented and agreed to, we may find that our separate, independent mental definitions may conflict with each other. There's a pyramid or layering concept that shows relationships typically between these various critical success factors, in that there may be principal goals that contribute with contributing key performance indicators or critical success factors. In most organizations, there are typically 3 to 6 goals, more often 6 goals from most mission statements. These are major levels of achievement to be realized by the enterprise. So now step 3 is to clearly express what has to be achieved in the strategic plan. We need to define and agree the wording of each goal. We need to decide on the measures for achievement of a goal, the achievement level and the time for achievement. And we need to determine the goal relationships to identify principal goals and lower level contributing goals to those principal goals, which shows us how the goals are related to each other. Looking at goals and objectives, we need to decide what does the business want to achieve in the long term or the short term. And the terminology generally is goals relate to long-term achievements, while objectives relate to short-term achievements. In some organizations, these may be reversed. So goals might be short-term achievements and objectives may be long-term achievements. It doesn't matter as long as there is a consistent understanding of a goal statement being long-term, say, and an objective statement being short-term. Goals and objectives must be quantitative. There are 3 characteristics that have to be provided in the wording of a goal or an objective statement. We must clearly know the performance measure that will be used to indicate achievement of the goal on a long-term basis or objective on a short-term basis. We need to know the result value or level that has to be achieved, and we also need to know when that level needs to be achieved to realize the result. Unless we have measure, level and time, the statement is not quantitative. Measure and level without time has no requirement. Measure and time without level does not enable us to determine whether we've achieved the goal or objective. We must know what the measure is to determine the achievement level performance within a given time. So a goal and objective must address these 3 characteristics: measure, level, and time. Looking at our business plan foundation, we saw policies sit on top of the vision and the environment and establish boundaries of responsibility for goals and objectives within the policy boundaries, sitting also on top of the vision, core values, mission and purpose. So let me summarize how we determine between policies, goals and objectives to this point. Policies, I said, define the rules of the game. They're qualitative guidelines that define boundaries of responsibility. Goals are long-term statements, objectives typically short-term statements that define quantitative targets. To be quantitative, we must know what measures achievement of the goal and objective, what the result value or level has to be realized, and by when. The measure, the level, and the time. Those three characteristics must be clearly expressed for a statement to be a meaningful goal or objective statement. So let's have a look at how we determine a strategy and a tactic statement. Strategies clearly state what activities are needed to be carried out to achieve the goals within the policy guidelines. Not yet how we're going to carry out those activities, but merely what activities have to be carried out. The how the strategies will be carried out or implemented are expressed in tactic statements, and a tactic statement defines the detailed task lists or action plans that indicate implementation of the strategies. The tactic statements will then be expanded further to define the business processes. Business activities we'll see later indicate what has to be done, and they're made up of business processes within them. So the relationship between strategies and tactics that we see in column 6Y of the Zachman framework, strategies indicate what activity, what has to be done to achieve the goals. Tactics indicate how the strategies will be implemented to achieve the goals, correspond in the Zachman framework to column 2, how. In column 2, how, business activities express what has to be done in support of the strategy statements in column 6Y, and tactic statements express the business processes that define how the business activities are implemented in column 2, how, of the Zachman framework, corresponding to the tactic statements in column 6Y that indicate how the strategies are implemented. So we see the relationship between strategies and tactics in column 6Y and the corresponding statements in column 2, how, of activities and processes. So let's look at some typical planning statements. They've been developed further by the XYZ managers as part of their business planning workshop endeavours. And what I want you to do is think along with me as I go through these. I want you to analyse the wording, and from that analysis tell me what each of these statements is. So we saw in that list of critical success factors a CSF called asset growth. And in the business planning workshop, the managers of XYZ have collectively discussed the definition of asset growth. And they agreed that it means that we need to monitor performance of all aspects of our business so that each activity has a favourable effect directly or indirectly on the mission return on investment. So let me ask you, does this statement indicate qualitative boundaries of responsibility? Is this statement a policy? Not really, is it? Does it express qualitative measurement? Does it give a measure? Does it give a level for achievement? Does it give a time? No, so it's not a goal or objective statement. Well, does it tell us what we have to do without necessarily telling us how we're going to do it? In other words, is it a strategy statement? Well, that seems to be a little bit more descriptive of the wording here, and it suggests here that the statement asset growth describes what we have to do, and so it's a statement of strategy. Interestingly, you'll see in most business planning statements in strategic plans that those statements are not quantitative, and in most cases they are statements of strategy indicating what has to be done. So let's take this a little further. We'll look at the next CSF, which was a statement of profitability. What does this mean? The XYZ managers discuss and agree that the definition of profitability means that we need to monitor financial performance of all activities to ensure that profit and cash flow projections are achieved according to or ahead of plan. So is this a qualitative guideline that establishes boundaries of responsibility? Is it a policy statement? No, not really, is it? Well, is it a quantitative statement with measure, level, and time? Is it a goal or objective? No, it's not that either. Well, does it tell us what we have to do rather than how we're going to do it? And so is a strategy statement. Well, that seems to be more descriptive, doesn't it? So this profitability statement is a strategy. As I said, most planning statements in a typical business plan are statements of strategy indicating what has to be done. We'll go a little bit further and we'll look at the market share CSF. Now this says the managers agree that it means we've got to achieve targeted annual marketing position expressed as a particular market share percentage for the chosen market segments of XYZ. So analysing that, let me ask you, does this provide a qualitative guideline that establish boundaries of responsibility? No, not really. Is it a quantitative statement with measure, level and time? Well, it's almost that, isn't it? If the ... is clearly expressed as market share percentage, then this might be close to a goal or objective statement. It's not really a strategy because it's not telling us what we have to do, but it's rather telling us what we need to achieve. So it's nearly a quantitative target for what, and it's potentially a goal, but it's got to be expanded further and agreed in terms of what the performance level should be. Let's have a look at a fourth CSF. This is the one I asked you about market analysis. And the XYZ managers agree that this is defined best by the statement, analyse existing and emerging markets on a regular basis to assess market growth, potential market size, and potential market competition. So this statement is not a policy, it's not a qualitative guideline that establishes boundaries of responsibility. It's not a quantitative statement, it does not give us a measure, level and time, but it does tell us again, it defines what we have to do. We've got to analyse existing and emerging markets on a regular basis, so it is a potential strategy. Once again, we've got out of these four CSFs, we've got definitions that are statements of strategy for 3 and 1 statement which is a potential goal. Looking at step 4, we now need to determine the opportunities or problems that exist that may be problems impeding goal achievement. These problems are often referred to as threats, or that may enhance goal achievements. These are often referred to as opportunities. Sometimes technology can present opportunities to enhance goal achievement in a business plan. Now, we will refer to these collectively as concerns or issues, but sometimes they're referred to as strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, or SWOT, SWOT. And you will have heard of the term SWOT analysis, or more memorably, weaknesses, opportunities, threats and strengths, which gives us the acronym What's Up, Doc? Technology can often help address these in terms of opportunities or in terms of threats. So, concerns and issues document the potential barriers that impede or the opportunities that facilitate achievement of goals and objectives, both internal and external to the organisation. Looking at our foundation wall again, policies sit on top of the vision and mission statement and establish boundaries of responsibility for goals and objectives, and also concerns and issues fitting within the upper boundary represented by the policy statement. Strategies and technologies that can then be evaluated for their ability to overcome the problems that have been identified as potential threats or take advantage of the opportunities. And as I referred to, this is sometimes called SWOT analysis, or more memorably, What's Up, Doc?